let's talk about Roswell. I think everybody knows some kind of cover-up happened. So very quickly, I'm going to give you a rundown of some stuff that doesn't really get reported unless you go listen to the right people. Now, this is coming primarily from L.A. Marzulli, who's been to the site, found some interesting stuff there, and has done a deep dive on the whole thing. So, he interviewed Jesse Marcel Jr. before he died. And if you don't know who that is the son of Jesse Marcel Sr., who was the intelligence officer on the scene when the Roswell crash happened, okay? So he gets called out and because something crashed in this field, and there were actually two sites. So it touched down in one spot and then it like bounced off the ground and then landed in another spot. So there were actually two crash sites. So being the intelligence officer, he goes and checks out the scene. So he's out there collecting debris. He goes home and it's like 2:30 in the morning or so. He wakes up his son, Jesse Marcel Jr., and his wife, and he says, "Hey, wake up. I need you to touch what I brought home. Look at this because you'll never see anything like it again for the rest of your life. This is not from Earth." And what it was metal. And they said the closest thing that they could just relate it to that we have is like aluminum foil or tin foil, where it's metal but you can crumple it up and then smooth it back out. But the thing is, when you crumple foil, you see the creases. But they said with this, it would go completely flat and you couldn't see the creases. We don't know what this is. So the newspaper ran a story saying that a flying disc crashed, or a flying saucer crashed. And they ran that story right after this happened. And then General Ramey flies in, and all of a sudden a different narrative is pushed. And then the paper's told, hey, run basically a retraction of what you ran yesterday, say that the excitement is not justified, it was just a weather balloon. And you have Jesse Marcel Sr. here, the famous picture where he's handling the debris of the weather balloon that was produced, because that's now the narrative that they're going with. That, hey, it was not a disc, it was actually just a weather balloon. And you could see the look on his face. He's like, come on, this is ridiculous. So, given that technology has advanced since 1947, people were able to blow up some of the papers that we have old pictures of, and you can see where the word disc is actually there in this official correspondence. And it shows up in two places, one spelled with a C, one spelled with a K. And then this is an artist's rendering of it, or an enhanced reproduction of it, where it talks about the victims of the crash. So somebody was carrying around documentation that there was a crash disc and there were victims of the crash, meaning beings or pilots of this crashed craft. And all that got swept under the rug because we're supposed to believe it was a weather balloon, right? There's a lot more to it than I even have time to get into, but there's this later video that I'm going to show you of Jesse Marcel Sr. before he died, talking about how both he and General Ramey knew this was no weather balloon. So watch this, I'll come back.
They took pictures, of course. They had a whole flock of microphones there. They wanted they wanted some comments from me, but I wasn't at liberty to do that. So all I could do is keep my mouth shut. And General Ramey is the one who discussed, or told the newspapers, the newsmen, what it was, and to forget about it. It was nothing more than a weather observation balloon. Of course, which we both knew differently.
So it was a cover-up, absolutely. And this is alleged, we can't verify this, but there are whispers that the bodies taken from the crash retrieval were taken to Wright Pat in Dayton, may still be there, being preserved. And multiple people have gone on the record, some with deathbed confessions, others with like a sealed affidavit that was not to be opened until their death. People in different positions in the military who were brought on to work on this whole thing that happened. One of them basically said his job, he was a communications specialist, it was his job to try to communicate with the pilots from this crash. And here's the thing, L.A. Marzulli, among others, have gone to the crash site. Somebody has to show you where it is, but they went out there with a metal detector, and you know what they found? So first, the metal detector goes off, and what they find is like a 12-inch metal spike that's down in the ground. And apparently there are a bunch of them, so why would those be in the ground? The crash site's in the middle of nowhere. Well, if you do not want anyone to find metal debris, and you know metal detectors are going to be coming, sweeping the ground, you might put something in there as a decoy, as a distraction. If your metal detector goes off and then you find a metal spike, you'd be like, oh, that's what it picked up, when you know there's something else to find. So they kept going, and they actually found metal It's all crumpled up. They've had it tested, and I believe there's further testing that they are going to have done. But as of now, it falls between two different alloys. It doesn't match any metal we have on Earth. It's not quite a match. And a guy by the name of Frank Kimbler also went out to the debris site, and he found buttons. And that may not sound like anything significant, but he was able to identify the buttons. They came from an army uniform, and those uniforms were issued from during the time the Roswell event happened. So here's where conjecture comes in. Were there men in the army on their hands and knees picking up debris? Somebody lost a couple buttons in the process. Somebody made sure metal spikes were put into the ground, so if metal detectors go off, that's what they find, and not the actual metal from the crash site. Because if you find it and you test it, you will see, this doesn't come from Earth. So what is this? A lot of work, in my opinion, that went into covering up what really happened at Roswell. There's a lot more to it than that. Go to L.A. Marzulli's website. He did 2 films on Roswell, and he, like I said, interviewed the members of Jesse Marcel Sr.'s family. It's worth your time.